Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Dojo Live. Today is Thursday, March 18th, 2021. It's the last episode of the week. So we're having a lot of fun with this with my co-hosts Carlos Ponce in Cuernavaca, Mexico, and Kim Lantis in Hermosillo, Mexico. And
Hey.
I am Tulio Siragusa joining you from Southern California. Hi, guys. So
It's
this is the last
good to
show.
be
We got
here.
4 shows this week.
Four shows. Yeah.
We have a
Sounds
show
like a
every day
Stetson and
but
Chihuahua.
Friday. We have a show every day but Friday because you have to have lunch once a week at least, right? So, so anyway, we're joined by Ariel Lopez, who is the founder and CEO of Knac. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Perfect. And Ariel lives in Atlanta but is joining us today from St. Louis. Welcome to the show.
Thank
We're
you.
looking forward to speaking with you about improving diversity and candidate experience through AI and HR tech. So it's a mouthful, but it's a very relevant topic that we're looking forward to talking with you about and digging in. But before we do, let's get to know you a little bit. If you could please introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about Ariel.
For sure. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Ariel Lopez. I am the co-founder and CEO of Knac. We have recruiting software that makes it easier for companies to screen, manage, and give feedback to applicants in their pipeline. We care deeply about the candidate experience and making sure that people don't get ghosted and overlooked. I myself also care deeply about diversity, thus the topic for today. I started my career in recruiting and talent acquisition, primarily working alongside startups and major brands, helping them build and scale teams. And before I started Knac, I was a career coach at General Assembly. So I've been in the space for a really long time, very passionate about the future of work, closing the skills gap that exists within the economy, and helping people find amazing jobs in tech.
Awesome. All right. Tell us about Knac. What gave birth to this idea that you started and what do you guys do?
Yeah, so the journey to Knac really is a marriage of my recruiting and coaching experience. So, as a recruiter, I know what it looks like behind the scenes. And what people don't understand is recruiters are overwhelmed. When you send your resume out or when you hit apply for a job, it doesn't go directly to their inbox. It's not like they get a notification that says, "Hey, Ariel just applied for this job and she's amazing." Unfortunately, what happens is your application goes into an ATS, which is an applicant tracking system. I joke that that's where resumes go to die because there's so many applications that go into the ATS, millions. So if you apply to a really popular company, let's say Spotify, and you're one of 10,000 people that apply for the job, there's a really good chance that the Spotify recruiter never sees your application. So because of volume, what ends up happening a lot of the time is recruiters try to find the easy way out. So they will rely on nepotism or pattern matching or referrals. This is why tech has a homogeneous culture. It's not because recruiters are inherently biased. It's mostly because they don't have the time or bandwidth to accurately manage the millions of applications that they get. So having that knowledge, understanding, but also having the empathy of a career coach. I've worked with so many different professionals of different backgrounds that have tried to break into tech. You're thinking of career transitioners, people that are self-taught. I worked at General Assembly, one of the biggest boot camps in the world. I know the barriers to entry and that process of your application going through the ATS is just one of the biggest offenses. So over time, we kind of realized that's where we wanted to kind of put our flag in the sand and figure out how to disrupt it and just make it more fair and for everyone involved, not just the recruiter, but also the job seeker.
Awesome. Fantastic. So ATS is basically the Borg and it needs to be fed all kinds of resumes. So it just disappears in there. So let's see how you're disrupting that. Let's introduce the topic. Carlos, please introduce the topic and let's get right into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Tulio. Well, today we're going to be speaking. The topic that our guest chose for today is improving diversity and candidate experience through AI and HR tech. In other words, we're going to be answering the question of how organizations can revamp their recruiting processes to remove bias and create fair hiring practices for all. So, well, first thing, Ariel, thanks for joining us today. And the question that I have for you, Ariel, is why did you choose this particular topic, or why did you feel that it was relevant for this day and age?
Yeah, I think helping people find jobs is relevant in any day and age, especially in a post COVID world. I know diversity and inclusion has been something that's been a buzzword for a really long time, especially in tech, but I also know it's been a lot of lip service, unfortunately. As everyone can see, the metrics haven't changed much. So we just believe that it's time for solutions and to take action. And I was really excited to discuss this topic and hopefully provide some advice, so anyone that's listening is able to go back to their organization and impact change.
Great,
Nice.
excellent. Thank you so much, Ariel. Nice.
So, Ariel,
Back to this out.
I'm curious to dig into the impact this is having, for example, on candidates, right? They apply, especially during a downturn. You can think back in 2008, 2009, and most recently because of COVID. It's very frustrating and very disheartening for individuals to feel like they're just not being seen. They can't break through literally the gatekeeper. In this case, it's a machine.
Yeah.
So what impact has that had on candidates in general? And then is there a you'll be talking about diversity. Is there a further impact that has had on minorities and on women that already struggle as it is to get the attention that they want? Can you talk a little bit about that? And how does your solution help solve that?
Yeah, no, thank you so much for asking that question, because all of those parts are important. I think as it pertains to candidate experience, I've seen people fall into depression, like serious depression, anxiety, fear. I know what it's like to go through a rough job search. And every time you get ghosted, every time you get an auto rejection, it makes you kind of self-reflect and you start to think you're the problem. And I hate that for people. And I really wanted to find a way to change it. Like, I think the status quo is, it feels like you're throwing your resume into the black hole. There's not a ton of faith that happens between the job seeker and the company. Most people kind of joke, well, they'll probably never look at it, but I'm going to submit my application anyway. Like, no one should go into any process with that amount of doubt. And we wanted to alleviate it. And I think that as it pertains to companies and why they should care, candidates aren't just applicants. They're not just resumes in a system. These are the people that support your livelihood. Like, they are consumers. So if you think of really large brands, let's say it's a Nike or MasterCard, the next time that I'm in market to make a consumer decision, if I had a poor candidate experience, no one ever got back to me, I don't feel like I was fairly vetted, then maybe I go with one of your competitors. And I think that's not the reason that companies should care. They should care because they want to make this process more human, and that's what we aspire to do. But I do think there's a way to kind of tie it to the bottom line as well, because it can cost them money, and it will cost them money, and their reputation in the long run. As far as diversity is concerned, you talked about people that are typically underrepresented, especially women, people of color, coming from marginalized communities. It's really hard for them to break through the noise, especially if solutions like Knac don't exist. I kind of describe the recruiter relying on referrals or pattern matching or nepotism. Like, hey, does your cousin still need a job because there's an opening on the engineering team? That happens every single day. And if you think about those communities that are underrepresented, they don't have that access. They didn't go to Stanford. They don't know someone that is on your board. And a lot of hiring decisions come down to that. And we're big believers that that should not be a factor at all. People should be judged fairly. And hopefully the recruiter is making a decision based off of their skills and their qualifications. And that's what Knac does. So instead of the recruiter going in and screening everyone in their pipeline, our tech actually auto screens 100% of applicants for them. We make sure that they're vetted properly, they're vetted in a structured way, and then we make sure that they're funneled to the right place based off of where they fall. Just because you're not a good fit for the job doesn't mean you're not a good fit for, I don't know, another job, especially if the company has 500 other positions open, right? Like, we want to make sure that loop gets closed. If you're not a good fit today, that doesn't mean you won't be a good fit in the future. But if no one tells you where you're going wrong, if no one says, hey, Kim, thanks so much for applying for this job, these are the skills that you were missing, go work on these skills, you're never going to know how to become qualified and how to become prepared. And we just saw such a gap in the market between repairing that relationship. Like, we're definitely selling into recruiters, and our product is essentially just to make their lives easier. But we also recognize that improving candidate experience, improving diversity are just byproducts of improving your process. And it's kind of crazy to us that no one has recognized that by now.
One of my questions for you was exactly what you just answered. What is Knac doing differently that perhaps other applications and services like yours are not doing? So my next question was, what can applicants and candidates do to help themselves, let's say, hack the system? How could I make myself more sellable?
Hope that a company is using Knac. That's one thing. But I think there are a few things that I would advise. First and foremost is building that referral network for yourself. And it's unfortunate, but nearly 80% of jobs are found through referrals. And if you don't have traditional access to that type of social capital, it can make it really difficult for you to navigate. So I think making sure that you're intentional about cultivating relationships with people in your industry, not only recruiters and hiring managers, but colleagues, people that you will be working with alongside one day. Understanding what their roadmap and what their trajectory looks like is really helpful too. I often tell people to kind of make a top 10 of companies that you want to work at. But as you're going on LinkedIn, look at the employees that work at those companies and look at where they used to work. Look at where they graduated from. Look at any organizations that they were a part of, because that gives you an idea of what you should probably do to influence your roadmap as well. I think the second thing is show your skills and project work whenever possible. Do you understand that recruiters are trained to judge? And if they don't see that keyword on your resume, they're likely just going to discard it. And the best way you can make sure that that doesn't happen is to show off your skills and show them what you can do. So in lieu of a cover letter, I would send a link to my portfolio and say, hey, this is the job that I applied for. Here's an example of how I've been doing this work in the past. And this is what I would love to do if you were to hire me. And I think the people that are able to kind of go above and beyond really set themselves apart from the rest of the competition.
Thank you. So I came down, can we talk about resumes? My assumption, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that Knac, the first filter that you set up is based off of that resume itself.
Yeah.
So the better we can have that resume set up, the better your tool or tools like yours will work.
Absolutely.
My biggest question is, I actually came across this last week, and my husband and I were speaking about it, we have different opinions. So I want to know what you feel about putting a photo on your resume. Is it a good thing to do, a not so good thing to do, or something that depending on what it is that you're applying for?
That's a really good question. I think everything is circumstantial. Like, also note, even though I used to be a recruiter and a career coach, like, everything that I say is not the law. And I know that other recruiters and coaches disagree with me on certain things. So it's
Understood. Good disclaimer.
Disclaimer. That being said, you know, if you live in the UK, you have a CV, and your CV can be 5 to 6 pages, and everyone in the States will tell you if it's more than one page, we're not going to look at it. And that's kind of true, right? So I think depending on the role, depending on the industry, I think tech is very lenient. Granted, has its flaws, some of which we've already discussed. But I do think that this industry at large embraces creativity, and we embrace people that do things and kind of go outside of the box. So I would say, for the purposes of formatting for the ATS, you probably don't need it. Don't worry about taking up that space. Like, your skills matter more than anything else. However, I am a big fan of developing your professional brand in a way that it speaks for you, right? Like, you need to have collateral and be able to send people things that kind of have your voice when you aren't in the room to convince them yourselves. So spending time working on your portfolio, developing a personal website, that's the perfect place. Like, go collage crazy, any of your best Instagram photos that show off your personality. Like, I think those are great places for them. And you also have more space to kind of talk about who you are as a professional and why they should care. The hard part is you can't fit all of that into your resume.
Unless you make it into like a digital magazine.
Yes. And I coached someone before that did that, and it was freaking awesome. I talk about him all the time because he actually doubled his salary within less than 6 months. He came to GA. He took a UX design course. He just so happened to have a background in media and advertising, so closely related field. I knew it was going to be a little bit easier for him to break in than other folks. That being said, he was like, I'm not doing a resume. I'm doing a media kit. And he basically turned himself into an RFP, and it was awesome. He got so many interviews, and he ended up, I forget where he ended up, but it was either a creative agency or a creative tech company, and he doubled his salary effectively. So it worked.
Carlos, I think you had a question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was a little bit distracted because I'm still trying to figure out this layout thing now that Ruben is not here. So first of all, let's go back to what I do know, which is very little. Okay. Yeah, I had a question regarding especially the AI part, Ariel, and kind of ties into what Kim was saying about the picture and all that. And I've seen a lot of, and especially in Latin America, well, I do know that in Mexico, as a fact, that's the way it is. And I don't know if other countries, but I assume in Latin America, but I assume that might be. What would you say to these folks who might be watching out there and who are just getting their feet wet in technology for recruitment purposes or career advancement purposes, but are kind of a little bit inclined towards they have this desire of putting every little piece of information that is generated about them through their lifetime, like, what was the name of the kindergarten they attended and all that, so it's like, was it even their, what their hobbies are, or, things that might not even be relevant to whoever's hiring or the recruiters. So what would you say to these people? And also, how is that, if I don't know if that's the case, but how is that tackled by artificial intelligence in order to weed things out in a way that's really going to be of service to applicants across the board?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think there's a ton of room for improvement as it pertains to AI, and we can talk about that a little bit more. But I'll start on the candidate side. For your resume, I do think you're doing yourself a disservice if you include information that's no longer relevant. So where you went to high school, that random class that you took in college, even your GPA, like, no one cares about any of that stuff unless maybe you're entry level, but assuming that you're not, right? Like, you've been in your career 3 to 5 years more.
How hard it worked for that GPA, and once you become an adult, you realize it really doesn't mean much. The scholarships maybe to get you to through college, but after that, meh.
Yeah. So definitely, I always suggest your last 3 to 5 positions. Your last 3 to 5 that probably will fit a page on your resume, fully describe what you were doing in all of those places. And as it pertains to culture fit, there are ways you can kind of touch on those soft skills. At least that's what recruiters like to call them, to make sure that those get picked up on, and they actually do. So in terms of our tech, we are vetting for technical fit, but we're also vetting for softer skills. Like, we care about your communication skills. We care whether or not you can pitch a client. I know it's kind of hard to vet those things on paper, but if it's a part of your expertise, then certainly that is something that you should list on your resume. And there are other tools that solely focus on soft skills. And there are other tools that kind of focus on different types of assessments as well. I believe Pluralsight is an example of one of those companies. So any company that is utilizing them may be kind of wanting to see where you pick up in other areas that aren't necessarily just the keywords in the job description or what they said that they were looking for initially. And so you want to paint your show off your personality as much as you possibly can. I typically advise creating a passion purpose statement. I think the older term was the objective statement. It's like that 2-liner that's at the top of your resume. Scrape that. Like, anything that you got in college, just throw it away because it's probably not good. But you do want to find a very succinct way to say who you are as a professional, the type of value that you provide, the types of things that you care about. That's the passion. Like, I want to work with creative technology. Like, these are the things that I want to do, or I care about social impact. I care about the future of work, right? Like, I have an idea of, okay, this is who this person is outside of the title and the roles that they've had before. And then kind of talk about what you hope to do. Like, I want to create meaningful user experiences. I know a designer that had that was a part of their statement. And all of those things matter, especially as the AI tools are kind of doing the vetting. The hope is that they pick up on some of the good stuff and not just keywords like JavaScript.
Right. And I think it's our responsibility as applicants to make sure that we're not trying to fit our resumes into this one size fits all. Like, you can make those minor adjustments depending on the role that it is that you're applying to. I think it's really interesting, going back to the AI that you're utilizing and soft skills. For example, something that comes to my mind is detecting spelling mistakes. For a role like that I'm in, where I'm emailing people and I'm the first face that a lot of people have for a company, I think it's really important that I can put together something that's polished. And I've gotten rid of people because I'm like, oh, you misspelled 2 things on your resume. Like, that's not okay. So what ways can the AI also, I think you touched on this a little, but cultural fit for companies where it's really important, that idea of like, you will thrive here. Is there a way that AI can work through that?
The answer is we're figuring it out. That is the honest answer.
I love honesty.
Yeah, it remains to be seen. But I do think there are ways you can kind of talk the lingo that recruiters love. Recruiters love critical thinking skills. They love problem solvers. They love people that are able to work autonomously. Like, if you want to work at a startup, being able to describe how you can get something done without a lot of guidance or a lot of overhead, right? Those things matter. I think things that certainly stand out, even though it's not necessarily culture fit, but things that you would want to highlight, if it's anything metric based. So you worked on the social media team and you saw a 300% increase on the Twitter channel because of a campaign that you did, you definitely want to bold and highlight that. Any key accounts that you've closed, especially for people in sales and marketing, I think they forget that sometimes. Like, your Rolodex, the accounts that you manage, that's just as good as knowing like if you're knowing what the tech stack is, if you were an engineer. So I think understand what works for you and what is very kind of role specific. Be able to describe your experiences in ways that aren't just technical, but you're giving a better idea of kind of the bird's eye view so the recruiter will understand as well. And I think as it pertains to AI, one thing that we're focusing on that I'm really excited about is understanding transferable skills and related fields. So if Twitter is looking for a product manager, we also want to make sure that a program manager at Accenture or Deloitte doesn't get lost because they're missing the keyword product on the resume. And that's really important because so many of the roles in tech are hybrid roles, especially product. Like I see people come from ops, I see people come from marketing, I see people come from engineering. Like there's so many different avenues. And my hope is that we're able to kind of train recruiters to see the outliers and the people that they may have originally passed over because they didn't have an exact keyword.
Which is really relevant now because people are getting crazier and crazier and more creative in their titles that they're giving themselves.
Yeah, that too. I saw a job description for a full stack marketer. I'm like, what the hell? What does that even mean? Like, why would you even post that?
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that regardless of the keyword on your resume, we're able to get a good enough understanding about who you are holistically that we can relay that back to the recruiter. And we want to advocate for people because if you're not,
Ariel,
yes,
just speaking about advocating for people, we're coming up on time, so I really want to make sure we get this question in because I think it's important. We're talking about enhancing diversity and removing bias. We recently had, maybe a few months ago, a professor from Stanford who teaches ethics at Stanford talking about how AI has inherently some flaws when it comes to bias because it carries historical trends, and some of those historical trends are not exactly where you want to go. So you don't want to repeat some of the biases that unfortunately it's been built in. The machine doesn't know that it's biased. It just says, oh, this has worked in the past. We've hired a bunch of white males. Let's continue doing that. That works. So that's kind of, that's a problem with some of these algorithms built in. So how are you guys, overriding that in order to create a more equitable approach to, identifying the candidates that are coming in?
Yeah, that's huge. The honest answer, what I always start with is our team. We have a diverse team. We have Black and brown people in a room training the tech to understand who the outliers are. And it starts there. I think if we're thinking about AI, especially machine learning, you need people that come from diverse populations that understand the experiences and understand the verbiage of people in the communities that they're trying to reach, right? You're never going to get 3 cis white men in a room to create an AI tool that's going to help women and minorities. You're just not going to do it. And I hope that
no matter how well intentioned, this is just not going to happen.
It's just not going to happen. I don't care how well intentioned it is because they don't come from those places. And to me, that's a big part of our narrative. I think that's why what makes our solution different, because we do have diverse people in the room that are advocating on behalf of the communities that we want to support. I think the second piece of that is training the tech to understand what I kind of mentioned earlier, like transferable fields, relatable skills, things aren't the cookie cutter keyword. If someone is a self-taught developer or they graduated from Flatiron School or Lambda School and your keyword is Stanford, you're never going to see that person. They will never pop up in your system because you're looking for that Stanford person. So I think being able to make sure that the algorithms recognize who good people are, regardless of their title or the company that they may have worked at before, is imperative to doing this work correctly.
Excellent. We're up on time. I think there was one more question about the company's culture. Carlo, did you have that one?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Tulio. Well, one more question for you, Ariel, is about what you're building. And I'm talking about Knac as a company. As you grow, and particularly because of the fact that your platform, your solution has to do with talent attraction and recruiting and all these aspects. As you build Knac, I'm just curious what sort of people you might be looking at in the future as you grow. And the reason why I'm asking is because there might be folks out there who can be watching the show that at some point might even want to come work for you. What would you say to these people? What makes Knac a great company that people might want to come work for?
Yeah, well, we embrace the outliers. We embrace the outliers. We embrace the career transitioners. We embrace diverse people. We embrace people that have faced adversity and have overcome struggles. We love the underdog. And I think our team really understands people that have gone through those experiences because we ourselves are those people. So if you are listening to this and you're interested in working with us, I would love to talk to you. But I think the grand vision, not only for our team, but for the industry as a whole, is to hire and develop a workforce that truly reflects the consumers that we're trying to reach. And there is, as you know, societal, in terms of societally where we are today, where the minority is not truly the minority, even if that's what they want to call us. We happen to be a minority in the workforce, but we're not a minority in the world. And we believe that those two realities need to meet. And our goal is to marry them.
Fantastic. Ariel, it's been great to have you. We look forward to keeping up with your progress. Thanks for being with us. Just stay with us as we go off the air. I want to ask you about those headsets. They're really cool.
Oh,
I like the color. Just stay with us as we go off the air. Don't forget to join us this coming Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific when we recap all 4 shows. We had 4 shows this week in 10 minutes. You think we could do it? What do you guys? You think we could do it? We've done it before, but it's always a challenge. So come and join us. If you missed any of these shows, you could get the recap in 10 minutes of all of them. And of course, you can check out the website for any of the shows you've missed. You can use the search tool on the website, type in any topic you like. Chances are there'll be something that interests you. Until we see you again, stay safe and be well.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having joined us.
Bye.